Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Foreign Service Institute's Mabini Dialogue series. My name is Ovida, and I'll be your moderator for this afternoon session. Today, we have promoting Mindanao's economic agenda through the BIMP-EAG initiative as our topic. This Mabini Dialogue is part of the celebration of the Development Policy Research Month, which focuses on federalism and regional development. We're pleased to have today Mr. Antonio Esperalta, who established the Foundation for Rural Enterprises and Ecology Development of Mindanao, or FIDM, in 2009, where he presently serves as its Vice Chairman of the Board of Trustees and President. The mission of his organization is to inspire and empower rural and indigenous communities in Mindanao. Mr. Peralta has an extensive involvement in the BIMP-EAG initiative. In 1992, he was appointed as a Regional Economic Advisor to the Office of the President in the Southern Philippines and was involved in the formation of the East Asian Growth Area, a sub-regional grouping composed of the Southern Philippines, East Malaysia, Eastern Indonesia, and the Sultanate of Brunei Darussalam. Mr. Peralta also served as team leader of the Northwestern Growth Quadrangle. This project served as a blueprint for the development of Northern Philippines provinces. In 1995, he was appointed Deputy Chief of Party of the USAID Finance Growth with Equity in Mindanao program, which is one of the largest projects launched in Asia at that time. In 1998, Mr. Peralta joined the Northern Territory government as Senior Advisor to the Department of Asian Relations and Trade. Mr. Peralta is also a member of various chambers of commerce and has written a number of articles on regional economic development, trade financing issues, Islamic banking, and trade and investment promotion. He has also served as guest lecturer and speaker at several international conferences. He obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in Commerce from Ateneo de Davao University, a Master of Business Administration degree from Ateneo de Manila University, and a Master of Business Economics from the University of Asia and Pacific. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Antonio Esperalta.
Good afternoon. First of all, I thank you for taking the time to attend this talk on the BIMP-EAG. This is going to be one of those rare talks because this has a very strong historical perspective. I was there when we were setting this up with then President Ramos and with Mr. Paul Dominguez, who was then presidential assistant for Mindanao. We can look at what happened at that time, look at the issues, why it hasn't progressed from when we conceived the program at an earlier stage to a more advanced stage. Whether we like it or not, you cannot reverse the growth of development, but at the same time, there's been a lot of hindrances to it. Because all of these come to this new development. Now, in a way, it's kind of like a package, no? So, once again, I'd like to start off. Okay, what happened here? But this matter of BIMP-EAG is really nothing but really revisit to what has happened in the past, a long time ago. Looking back at our history books, I don't know how you're familiar with Asian history. The Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, even Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, all of that was part of the Majapahit Empire, the Great Majapahit Empire. And remnants of that still continue to this day, because you also have a number of Indonesians living in Philippine territories in Glan, in Sarangani province, in Mindanao. I don't know if you're aware of that. I had a chance to really interact with these communities there, and I asked them, why did you move here? Why not? We were born here. Long time before I was even brought to existence, these people were already there. They did not look at country boundaries as an important thing, as a deterrent for them to move in. It was more of the proximity to the place, and they've grown, their kids go there, and they have adapted to Filipino customs. You go to the northern fringes of Indonesia, in the islands of Tahuna, you will see that most of the people there look up at Manila as their capital. And I said, why? Because they have more or less learned that it's really the Filipinos that their interaction and the distance between these islands to Jakarta. Yun. All of these are a result of geographical proximities. And there are also patterns of trade that existed before then. And we will attempt to examine where it is now. Next. So, looking at the map, you have linkages here. Why Mindanao? Actually, originally it was Mindanao. Hindi pa kasama ang Palawan. Palawan came in about, I believe, in 97. No? In 97. But when this was conceived, it was just Mindanao. Really. And we're looking at the traditional shipping links. Nandiyan ang Zamboanga, Sandatan. And then on the di lang nasama dito, Tarakan in Indonesia. And these were logging settlements at the time. Resource extractive industries that were taking place at that time, especially in logging. The ones that were leading the logging activities in this area were Filipino loggers. Yan ang history niya. And if you want to really have a deeper understanding of what the impact of Mindanao has had with its neighbors, when I was working at the Northern Territory government in Darwin, the growth of the pearl industry there was brought about by workers of the Aguinaldo Pearl Farm in Davao City, in Samar Island. So that's why nawala sila doon and they migrated to as far as the Northern Territory. And you have Filipino communities practically in the different seaports of Indonesia, especially in Manado. Now, you can see the proximities here. That is where the pattern of trade lands. No? So, the historical trade links are brought by situations of comparative advantage in pricing. For those that have taken a course in development economics would know what comparative advantages are between countries and products. So, there are, for instance, when we put this up, we found out that cement in Indonesia was about 60% cheaper, together with asphalt, and that would have provided a lot of cement for us to really provide for farm-to-market roads in Mindanao. But then again, if we look at it also, we also know that the pricing of cement and asphalt products is a heavily subsidized industry in Indonesia. Okay, so that's just an example of that. If you look at Tawi-Tawi, for instance, the prevailing currency used in Tawi-Tawi, can anybody tell me what the prevailing currency is being used there? You'd think it's the Philippine peso. I don't think so. But that's Philippine territory. It's not Philippine peso. It's the Malaysian ringgit. Well, for those that are concerned, let's say, but you know, that's part of the Philippines. It's trade that drives this. The trading practices. Again, we look at the remoteness, the distance between these small island communities from the central capitals of Manila, Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur. The sole exception to the process of Yaga has been the Sultanate of Brunei, which is a country by itself. And that's sandwiched between Sabah and Sarawak and Kalimantan, Eastern Kalimantan. Next. So the objectives of this talk is to talk about the current developments in Big Yaga, looking at the priority projects, the role of government, private sector, and civil society, as well as examining the opportunities and challenges promoting Mindanao's development through the Big Yaga. Okay? Now we talk about this. So here's a statistical snapshot of Big Yaga. So there are numbers here. You have Yaga, percentage of BIM, and percentage of ASEAN. When you talk about Yaga, these are the provinces and the single country, in the world, well, with the exception of Brunei, that make up these numbers. When you talk of BIMP, that is the whole country as a whole. Let's distinguish that. Ito, yung Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines. If you look at the East ASEAN growth area, that's East Malaysia, East Indonesia, Mindanao, and Brunei Darussalam. Okay? So, we can see that basically from the chart itself, the gross domestic products, well, as a percentage of BIM, it's about 17.6. Itong Yaga nito. And then, if you look at the entire ASEAN, it's 10.7. And this is fairly material. If you look at the extent of what ASEAN as an economy, as a regional economy is. Then, in terms of land area, sa BIM naman, it's about 62%. And then, in the entire ASEAN, that's 35.3%. Still huge. With a lot of untapped resources, a lot of, I would say, the people, in terms of densities there of your population, it's about 18.9% of BIM, 11.6% of ASEAN. So while these numbers may look, and of course you have your international trade, for the entire ASEAN it's only 3.9, but for the BIM, Yaga to BIM, it's about 11.1. While these are very impressive figures of the onset, you think, why do we have this level of development? Now, this level of development right now is still in the same mode as it was in 1994. I had the privilege of starting this in 94. I left in 98. I came back again to look at what happened to the Big Yaga. And I was very surprised why it happened. But we'll get into that in the later part of this talk. So, the key indicators, your key economic indicators here, shows your annual growth rate of, in terms of real GDP in 2014 is 4.7. BIM, it's 5.3. Then for the rest of ASEAN, it's 4.7. Your GDP per capita, hindi rin malayo, it's about $3,740, $3,996 for the entire BIM, and then 4,057 in ASEAN. Your total exports in billions of dollars is about 68 compared to 415 in BIM and 1 billion. This is in billions of dollars. So it's about 1 billion, 1 trillion, I think, if I'm not mistaken, because a large part of your export come from oil. Yun. A large part of that, do not think that it's all commodities that are being traded. You're still back to its basic commodities, which are really lumber to a certain extent, although lumber has gone down based on our research, but energy coming out from the oil fields of East Kalimantan is the one that is the main driver for development for Eastern Indonesia. Okay, unemployment rate. Can we go back? Because this is very important. It's in 2015, it's about 5.3 in the entire Yaga region. But this number has been very much affected by your high employment rates in Brunei as well as in East Malaysia. But it's the different story altogether in East Indonesia as well as in Mindanao. So you've got the tale of two areas here having, sometimes different numbers in terms of unemployment. Next. So here is the chart for, we broke this down. Again, this is based on the ADB BIMP Yaga Vision of 2025. The Philippines has had the highest in terms of the GDP growth rate in GDP per capita. So itong PPP is not private public partnership. It is the purchasing power parity. Different currencies have different purchasing powers. So that's something to take note of. Then followed by Malaysia at about 6.6%. Then for this should be Brunei Yaga at 5.3%, Indonesia at 4.5%. I'm sorry, Brunei pala is nandito, -8. But for the entire of Yaga, in average nila, it came out to 5.3. But Brunei is a sole exception because 98% of Brunei's export or economy is oil related. Could you imagine shutting down, let's say, for a year? We did a study once. What happened if you shut down all the oil fields in Brunei Darussalam? Those guys are very fortunate because they can continue to exist as a country, not doing anything, no economic activity whatsoever. They can continue to exist for 15 years, given the amount of the reserves. Malito yung population base nila nun and plus the fact that they really put a cap on applications for citizenship. That's very rare and a very difficult process in Brunei Darussalam. Next. So the size of BINP in 2014, again, we can see that Indonesia has the largest, followed by Malaysia, and the Philippines, and then Brunei at a very low rate. So these figures are in parentheses refer to GDP per capita and GDP growth rate respectively. So yun. Next. So tignan natin yung timeline of the BINP Yaga initiative. In 1994, this was launched in Davao City. The senior officials ministers meeting was held there, the first one, where they ratified and approved the BINP Yaga concept into a program. That was when it happened. But before that, there were a lot of groundwork. There were a lot of work that were happening because obviously we had issues that we had to contend with. One issue, one sore point, is really the Philippine-Malaysian relations at that time because of the Sabah issue. The Sabah issue was never something that we have given up. We've never given it up. But we agreed at the time that it would be set aside, but work towards the development of the area. Because we both know that if we didn't do that, the problem would only worsen with the situation in Western Mindanao and areas of Sabah and northeastern side of Indonesia. So it was a concern at that time. Then in 1997, we had the Asian financial crisis. So the first country to really get affected with this was really Thailand. But the contagion spread out to the province, to the other areas like Malaysia, Indonesia. I do recall attending a conference in Bali at that time to talk about regional economic cooperation. When I left the airport and I normally exchange my money into rupiah, I just exchanged for $100 at the time. I got something like about 2,000 rupiah. When the plane landed in Bali, I was shocked to see that the value went up to 10,000 rupiah for $1. So you could imagine, having to cash something like about $100, you'd be bringing in so much rupiah. I've never had so much money like that in my life. And when I was looking at it, and I was saying, what happened here? Then, when the Asian contagion happened, it was really a combination of things also. At the time, the private sector in this country is over-invested in property. When you put in too much to earn, let's say, a higher return in a particular industry, it's not good. I've always believed in diversification of investments. So that when prices, let's say, of this commodity will go down, then you're not much affected. And that's what I've been telling even the farmer stakeholders that we've been training in Mindanao and parts of Visayas and even here in Luzon. As far as monocropping is concerned, in sustainable farming systems, hindi pwede yung isa lang. You have to diversify. And the diversification itself will pay a better benefit for you. And that we have seen. So, okay. Then in 1998, we had the El Nino and La Nina phenomenon, these weather extremities. And then onwards in 99, even 2000, we noticed that the peace and order situation was not getting any better. So that was a serious concern. All of this pushed back Yaga to what it was in 1993, 94. So whatever gains there were at that time was really put on hold. Because countries, understandably, like the Philippines, like Indonesia, like Malaysia, had to regroup. In the case of Malaysia, they defied the International Monetary Fund. They defied the advice of the World Bank to devalue their currency. They went fixed currency. They established their own pricing outside of that. Now, a lot of people at that time were saying that the Malaysian economy will go down because of that. But now it didn't. I just came back from KL, and I was asking myself, is this the result of the policies that you have taken? And that was a very brave policy for them to have turned their back on IMF, turned their back on what the international banking community was telling them. There were pressures, but they were also ready. They had to protect the ringgit. Speculations on currency attacks happen. And there are always people that will take advantage of certain situations. From my experience in Wall Street, I've seen how currencies can be manipulated subtly. You may not feel it, but if there's heavy buying on one side, you can be sure that a lot of this has to do with some bad news coming in. After all, bad news makes a lot of money. Have you ever seen whenever there's a war, unfortunately it has to be incidents like this that cause investors to really come in right away. They buy utility stocks. Because once the economy is able to recover, the first part that would really benefit from the development of a certain area would be your public utilities. That's how a lot of stockholders, or rather stockbrokers, made a lot of money. Currency hedging, name it, based on what we have seen. So, in the Philippines, hindi pa naman tayo ganun ka-advance. The latest crisis in 2008, 2009, with the near collapse of the banking sector in America, has affected the Philippines only because you had Lehman Brothers that was here. You had AIG that was here. But if these institutions were not here, I think you'd have only very minimal, 3% impact, which is not much really, compared to the kind of impact that countries like Singapore had. Because they're very much, they have a lot of business relationships with these American banks at that time. Okay, next. So in 2002, there was an attempt to really jumpstart sub-regional cooperation efforts. So key challenges were identified, modifications were made. Everybody knew that there was a lot that they had to lose if they did not pursue the further development of the Bibliaca. So the senior officials and ministers have decided to set up the Bibliaca Facilitation Center, BIMPFC, so that it would help improve coordination between various sub-regional institutions. The BIMFC also coordinates the SOM, which is your senior officials ministers meeting, and cluster working group conferences, and also serves as and coordinates the development partners programs and activities in the area. So who are these development partners? That's international multilateral agencies like the Asian Development Bank, the World Bank. They have been very active in this. As a matter of fact, ADB has funded a number of studies here, and that was the basis of presenting this paper. No? Then the local government forum is the focal point for discussions among local executives of the sub-region on common economic development agenda. The problem with this is that this would be a very good mechanism. And again, the issue of governance comes in. Why? Because the coordination between provinces, instead of having to go back to your capital countries, can be done face-to-face with your counterparts in the different provinces. Why? Because of the proximity. And you could, at that time it was envisioned that you could really resolve a lot of these issues between provinces. But that was an attempt to somewhat get the provinces more active in the development of the Bibliaca. Because you cannot exclude main actors of development like your LGUs out of the picture. It cannot just be driven by international, I would say, rather national agencies. No? So, for the same time, your trade facilitation cooperation was given a boost. So there was also an improvement. You had your CIQs task force that was set up. That was to simplify your customs, immigration, and quarantine services. I was pleased to know that they pursued that in Glan, in Sarangani. To date, there has been trade, but the trade is very much still far and few. I've received also, I interviewed a number of people when I was doing this paper regarding the kind of trading that was happening. The Indonesians would come here with their boats. They would be buying products like water. Water is an important commodity in these islands. They don't have water there. They buy their beer, they buy their whiskey, they buy their brandy. Yun ang mga best sellers. Cigarettes too. And they also sell Indonesian cigarettes here because Indonesian cigarettes are different. They are made out of cloth. No? So I don't know if you've seen that, but it has got that distinct, very sweet smell. So that in itself is also a result of the kind of trading that has been going on. Also, San Miguel beer is really one of the widely sought products in northern Indonesia. So, in 2006-2010, the development blueprint, the sub-regional roadmap to development identified broad strategic directions and cluster sector-specific goals and targets for implementation. Now, they're getting serious. This blueprint came after a thorough review of what has happened. Okay? So, the roadmap expanded the original objective of promoting intra-IACA trade, increased competitive advantage through cross-border complementarities. But really, the ones that we really want to see win at the end of the day are your SMEs, your small, medium enterprises, because these are the guys that really make up a large part of IACA's economy. So, not only just SMEs, I think even micro your micro, small and medium enterprises are the ones that will clearly benefit from this, provided that we take out a lot of these sometimes unnecessary rules of trade, international or regional trade. And that's why I'm very happy that AFTA is really being implemented. One thing about this, when we talk about IAGA, is that IAGA is the first step to integration. So kung titignan mo talaga sa learning curve niyan, Mindanao mauuna. Because they have already the trading links more than any other area in the Philippines. Already, a number of locators have been buying properties in the coastline of Mindanao. The largest of that is a group called Sharon Pokpan. Are you familiar with the CP group in Thailand? That is the counterpart of San Miguel Corporation or Universal Rubina. That group controls the feed milling industry in Indonesia. Why are they interested? Because of the animal feeds being produced, primarily made out of corn, cassava, chips, that are being processed in Mindanao. Because yung processing efficiency dito is better than Eastern Indonesia. So again, complementarities or comparative advantages are in play here. No? Next. So, the blueprint objectives called for a push for inter and intra-IAGA trade. Pag sinabi natin inter-trade, that means IAGA trade. That's trading between the countries in IAGA. No? Pag sinabi naman natin intra, that's outside of IAGA. So trade with Singapore, trade with Vietnam, trade with other countries. Okay? At the same time, ang focus noon was really in the following sectors: agro-industry, natural resource, tourism, which is ecotourism, transport, infrastructure, and ICT, with focus on SME development in the sectors. Then, coordination of management of environmental natural resources for sustainable development, coordination of planning and implementation of vital infrastructure, and logistical support to economic integration through public-private partnership initiatives. No? Next. So, trade facilitation efforts were begun with border crossing protocol. When IAGA was set up in '94, the protocol was very different then. One of the compelling reasons why this was also set up was the issue of informal trade. So ano itong informal trade? Number one on the list is currency smuggling. Bakit mayroong currency smuggling? Because of the inefficiencies of your financial sector. To open a letter of credit, if I wanted to buy fish, I'm a processor in General Santos at that time, it would take me about almost a month to clear my letter of credit with a bank. That's a very perishable commodity that I need to bring in. So how do people do that? They bring bags of money, and I've seen that in flights of Borak Airlines at the time and Garuda. When they were still having the Davao-Manado run, the Manado-Davao run. You see a lot of these fish traders bringing in a lot of money so that ma-release yung shipment ng kanilang fish that will be processed in Gensan. So I saw how it was happening at the time. Then we also noted what was happening in Tawi-Tawi, what was happening in Zamboanga. Yung trade flows that were coming in, and what was coming in and what was going out. So on the Philippine side, it was more of a lot of the finished products that we have, particularly food, of late, water. And I was surprised why water. Yung pala in these islands or in the fringe economies, the availability of water is being dependent solely on rain water. Wala silang parang luwa or parang local water district doon. Of late lang yan nagkakaroon ng mga institutions like that. But before, they did not have that. Okay? So, for us to continue with trade facilitation, it was important that there was a capacity building for our customs, immigrations and quarantine, and security officials from selected ports. They have to be trained. Why? Because this is a serious barrier to cross-border trading. And I've seen to this day, there are although lesser now, but meron pa rin inefficiencies. I call that inefficiencies. I don't want to use the dirty word of corruption, but other people have chosen to use a politically friendly word like inefficiencies as a case in point. Then, a post-trading review indicated major progress towards improved local CRQS capacity. In 2008, the sub-regional economies agreed to prioritize CBET, the community-based ecotourism. This is a big seller in the world market. Napakalaking market niyan. It is something that we in Mindanao, even Palawan, have identified ecotourism as a main driver of the economy. Okay? Now, itong ecotourism ito are also made up of primarily of your micro and small enterprises. Kaya, diyan natin masasabi na magkakaroon talaga ng very good impetus for inclusive growth na sinasabi natin. And that is also where you can also have a generation of green jobs, so to speak. No? Then, the vision of your CBET strategy is to convert IAGA as a globally competitive and connected multi-country ecotourism destination. This is very real and very doable. We have a lot of these tourism sites that can be developed or having a strong potential for development. So, based on the midterm and final assessments of the review of the development in IAGA, which was conducted in 2008 and 2010, the roadmap achieved a certain degree of progress, but project implementation gave mixed results. So itong gap na ito ng mixed results on project implementation became the basis of developing a newer document. No? So yun parang they went down to the point of developing what you call an implementation strategy. So most projects were not directly related to the strategic vision, had a weak design and implementation with no established monitoring and evaluation system. Look at this. We're talking about billions literally. Pero walang monitoring mechanism. In short, walang accountability. And that is one of the impediments to why investments never really happen the way they should have happened in Big IAGA. Was because of the absence of this kind of mechanisms. No? Projects fail for two reasons. And that is due to weak project design or very bad project design and bad management. There's no science to that. It's really that. And no matter what business case or case studies you go to grad school and evaluate situations like this, that has always been the case. Then, in October 2010, the 15th IAGA ministerial meeting, they decided that the roadmap strategy is transition to the BEV 2025. That is the fifth IAGA vision for 2025. Now you're talking. Now, but it took us how long to really realize this, and this. This could have been done years and years ago. But then again, we could also see the manner of governance in the different parts of IAGA. And part of the delay is really coming together and getting to agree on a common approach. So, the lessons learned in, between 1994 to 2010 is that part of those lessons is really a consistent and more focused strategic government intervention. Government doesn't have to be involved in everything. They have to choose, first of all, limited ang resources natin. So we must be strategic in our way of thinking and choosing the right kind of investments we want to get into. then the role of the private sector remains important in the economic sustainability of the AGA's cooperation. You take out the private sector, it will really lose its meaning. It becomes really a government exercise in cooperation na lang, hanggang doon na lang. This is what we'd like to see, your private sector coming in. And there have been trade missions coming in. Sure, there have been visits and pledges of making investments. The thing is, what are those investments? Are they really being felt in the places or the communities where they have been supposed to be located in? Have the communities really benefited from this? Balanced growth requires really a great deal of interaction with your communities. You cannot exclude the communities from this. There must be a good amount of stakeholder buy-in to any project that comes in. In that way, you ensure the success of the particular endeavor. Then, we talk about a strong sub-regional secretariat that must be sustained, institutional linkages to the ASEAN Secretariat to smoothen the pathway to ASEAN economic integration, the importance of technology development in hastening cross-border trade through electronic trading platforms. That part of technology has been not around at the time we did this. We did not foresee at the time the impact of what the internet revolution can do. Technology plays an important role in the way development of certain areas happen. Could you imagine for once, stop and think, tanggalin natin ang internet dito. Do you think, what kind of world will we live in? No Facebook, no nothing, no connectivity whatsoever. That was how we lived life then. We live by the telegram. I don't know for those that, I'm now 62 years old. I've seen really how communication transition. Yes. And I've seen the impact of what an electronic trading platform similar to a Lazada, similar to an Amazon, similar to a eBay that you can set up to really ease the transfer of goods. You want to take it one more step higher, although I don't know if this has been discussed. But one possibility that as an observer looking into this, in driving the business here, is using Bitcoin technology. How many are familiar with Bitcoin technology? Good. That's very good. At least there's two. I'm trying to be optimistic here. So, with Bitcoin, you don't have to worry about transaction cost. You don't have to worry about fluctuations in foreign exchange of currencies. Because once you buy that, yun na yun yung means of trading or buying. No? And believe it or not, I've never been as shocked. I've been to Bukidnon in Balay about a month ago. I was staying in a place that also accepted Bitcoin payments. Then I asked the owner why. And he got back to me, says, you know, a number of my customers come from Europe and they want to prepay, but they don't want to deal with banks. Sabi ko, bakit nagmamani laundering ba kayo niyan? The government itself will frown on this because mahirap i-track down yung Bitcoin na yan. But this can take shape. Whether you like it or not, technology will come. But government has just to catch up with it. There are certain things that you cannot regulate, for instance. How do you regulate space? You can't regulate space. You simply work with it so that it will redound to your advantage. Because there are certain things here that will really drive IACA. And this is one of the new developments. We're looking at electronic trading platforms. To fund that, traditionally you use a credit card, which is based on your local currency and the currency of the country you're dealing with. But at the same time, you've got also an emerging trend, the younger ones, the millennials, who are getting more savvy of using Bitcoin. Can you stop that? How do you regulate Bitcoin? Nothing. But there's also the downside of it, because if you don't control these things, it can also result into something not so good. You heard of the dark web? The dark web is a place where they do a lot of illegal transactions. And based on some of the people that I've spoken that are familiar with the crisis in Marawi, some of the Mauti group have engaged in that transaction of using Bitcoin to buy their weapons. I said, really? I didn't think it was possible. But I have to wake up to the cold reality. It is. Whether I like it or not, it's there. Next. So, while the implementation blueprint maintained important strategic trusts, there were some refinements. Dati, apat na yung strategic pillars. That's connectivity, food basket, tourism, and environment. The fifth one which they added was the social, cultural, and education part of it. So, this is now the implementation strategy that they did in 2012 to up until about last year. Okay, next. So connectivity, it's interconnection, seamless and safe multimodal transport, cross-border trading, and conducive investment environment, stable, resilient, and secure energy sector. Bibiyaga sub-region as an information and communication technology hub. No? So food basket is the competitive and climate resilient agro-industry fisheries. It has to be climate resilient. It can't be business as usual. The cost of climate change in the Philippines is damning. Do you know that for every major typhoon that hits us, we lose 2% of our gross domestic product? And to build it back to where it was will take you another 2%. So your overall cost of dealing with this situation is 4%. 4% of your GDP is a material matter that we cannot ignore. So what do we do about it? It's a case of us investing in climate change adaptation as well as in climate change mitigation. There's a difference between the two. Because in adaptation itself, there are things that you can do as a community to forestall maybe the impact of drought by using climate resilient seedling varieties in farms, for instance. Since we are an agricultural economy, the cost to your agricultural losses are huge every time a major typhoon happens. And I would think that the same kind of situations exist in Indonesia and Malaysia. The bigger threat there are the forest fires. Sa atin, in this part, especially in Mindanao and the Visayas, you're dealing with serious issues of sea level rise and coral bleaching. When you have these twin factors like that, it's going to affect your food chain. Then you'll see that you can't fish anymore in places where you used to fish, because the fish have gone to farther areas. Okay? Next. So for environment, it's a sustainable management approach in Bintiyaga sub-regional ecosystems. We have a very biodiverse area, no? In the Yaga area. Then tourism is the sustainable and inclusive tourism destination in the Asia-Pacific region, ecotourism. This is more really of the direction that I see. It's really the main driver of all what I have told you. Is really predicated on the growth of tourism. Then, for socio-cultural education, is the more of the people-to-people connectivity and cultural exchanges. Next. So the way forward, 2017 to 2025, what's in store? From this year onwards, 2025, economic growth in the Bibiyaga sub-region is expected to have improved globally. Gross domestic product per capita, although increasing, continues to be lower than national and regional averages. Because most of the, if you look at the poverty indexes of this country, there's still a lot of this area, other areas, these far-flung areas that remain impoverished to this day. You'd be surprised as in the case of Mindanao perhaps, it's sad to see when we have seen so much has been poured in terms of development assistance to places where to this present date, we have not really seen so much in terms of any payback as we can see in peace and order conditions. Nakatulong ba itong mga programa? You're talking not only of millions of pesos here. You're looking at billions of pesos. It's been a wonder to me as a citizen now, as I take a back seat, that year in, year out, we always have a poverty program, anti-poverty program. It was like that when I began my career 40 years ago. 40 years ago. And up to now, we're still talking about how poor we are. I mean, somehow, I really look at the dimensions of poverty. And a lot of this really has to do with the way projects are being implemented. And the way people that are implementing this are held accountable. In other countries, this is tantamount to a genuine people's revolution, where people will just simply stop paying taxes because they don't really see the impact of a government that has been responsive. It may sound too radical, but we've seen this happen in other countries. Okay? Now, poverty incidence has improved significantly, but still higher than the member countries' national averages. We would say mataas pa rin yung poverty incidence natin. So while the young countries have rebounded from the Great Recession, the strength of its economic performance depends on maintaining its resilience and competitiveness. So competitiveness, you cannot, for instance, legislate higher fixed wages. Everybody wants to talk about getting paid at the end of the day, but the thing is, can businesses really afford that? Or maybe look at a new business that can give you perhaps the financial leverage to be paying your employees higher rate. We must get out of the kind of business as usual for us to really progress and address the issue, the more pressing issue of poverty. Next. So, being resilient means BINP-IAGA achieves a level of development that will cushion the sub-region from impacts of external shocks and will allow early recovery. Inclusive, because BINP-IAGA narrows the development gaps within each country and between the sub-region and ASEAN. Sustainable, because BINP-IAGA initiatives consider environmental impacts in sustainable management of the resources. Being economically competitive will call for development efforts directed at growing industries where BINP-IAGA already has or could easily develop a competitive advantage. Common assets are basically your natural resources, agro-industry and fisheries, human capital, and tourism. The growth drivers, on the other hand, will see a situation where you have increasing incomes, increasing population, improving infrastructure and connectivity. But the main challenges really lie on your transport connectivity, different levels of economic development, differences in policy and regulatory environment, lack of coordination and synergy between and among clusters and sectors, and weak project implementation. Again, lumalapas na naman ito. Weak project implementation. Not only here, but also in other countries that are also part of the BINP-IAGA. Nakita rin namin yan. Good example, I mean, it's not only the Philippines that has a share of this kind of, I would say, snafu in their investment programs. We've also seen that happen in East Malaysia, in Sarawak. Way back in, I believe in 96 to about 1998, they engaged themselves to build one of the largest hydroelectric dams in Sarawak, displacing and really taking out a lot of your biodiversity to make way for that. Only to find out that the one that initiated the project, incidentally this guy was the one, that set up one of the first big Yaga investments in Samal Island, Ekran Berhad. But they were also the same ones that was tasked to set up the hydroelectric dam in Sarawak. What happened? They were just after cutting the trees. And they declared themselves unable to continue the project. Malungkot. I've been to that area. It's a beautiful area. I said, kung ganito lang sana ang Pilipinas. But now I traveled there recently and I saw what was done to it, although there been a lot of reforestation, but that secondary growth. Wala na yung primary forest. No? And that was, at that time, it amounted to almost like $11 billion in 96. So you look at, kung i-factor in natin yung inflation to present values, it's a lot higher than $11 billion. So poverty incidence, makikita natin dito, we're here on the upper line, no? It's about 42%. This is for, we talk about Yaga in general, no? Then Indonesia showing a downward trend, same with Malaysia. Perhaps, I don't know if poverty here is a national business. Nakakaawa, di ba, glaring? Ang laki ng gaps. Ito, I can live with this. Kung sana ang Pilipinas, nandito lang. I can say, maybe it's a regional thing. But I cannot ignore the Philippines, and this is based on Asian Development Bank statistics. The group that did the Big Yaga Vision 2025. Next. Okay. So, anong major concerns natin dito? So, let's take a look at transmigration as a first one. The number of persons with Indonesian descent, PIDs, that were born in the Philippines, but still holding Indonesian passports. According to the UNHCR, are being resolved. Naayos naman. But that was only a result after 2-3 years ago. Pero there's still pressing issues on how you can document these undocumented Indonesians in Sarangani province, even in Davao Occidental. That's where basically where the traditional settlements are. They have even a school. They have a school, they teach Bahasa there, everything, no? I mean, it's a full school. They coexisted. But I've talked to some of them, and they still regard Manila as their central capital. It makes me scratch my head. Of course, I'd be proud about it. But on the other hand, I mean, aren't you guys supposed to be Indonesians? But there's nothing we can really do because they've been here centuries ago. So how do you know that? Wala pang boundary, wala pang Philippines, wala pang Indonesia. No? But they've been there. On the other hand, we have also the same problem with Sabah. You have a lot of undocumented Filipinos naman there. And that was one of the sore points. I remember when we were putting up Bimbiyaga. That's why talagang tinignan ng mabuti yan kung ang Bimbiyaga can help alleviate this kind of social pressures. Then, I don't know how many groups you've listened to that has talked about something that most people know is there, but they don't talk about it. It's the matter of your piracy. The sad thing about it is the postponement of joint maritime patrols in the area. This was just done recently. Will require more than an armed military response. And to make it worse, your area where you're operating, where piracy is happening, it's very proximate to Sabah. So the Sabah claim, which we have not given up, can throw a monkey wrench into a very delicate situation of guiding the peace process. Why do I say that? Because if we do not get the support of the Malaysians, it will go back to what it was in the 70s. In the 70s, possibly we're not even born. But I saw that for myself, where there were a lot of shipments coming in of arms for the MNLF at the time. MNLF being the most dominant party
group or armed group at that time in Mindanao. So, you know, we have to make sure that, and it's a very delicate task within the Philippine government and the Malaysian government to make sure that we're able to handle this. While we realize that there's the Sabah plain, we should not make it as a roadblock to establishing lasting peace in the region. Ito pwede naman pag-usapan yun. This can still be discussed. But I don't know what modality who will eventually win out of that, because this has been a pressing issue since very long time ago. Okay? So, the piracy attacks, and this is how serious it is. In this chart, you can see that it's been declining. Yung Southeast Asia is the orange. The one in orange, no? So, makita mo, tumaas at a certain point, no? But not as bad as compared to West Africa. But kung titignan natin, West Africa has somewhat declined. All of the numbers went down by almost by half in 2012. This was when several countries already said, tama na. We will be sending our destroyers, our battle ships out there to really handle the situation once and for all. So, we saw that, but here in Mindanao, in Sabah, and parts of Indonesia, nakikita po, nandiyan pa rin. But why do we have this? The problem can be traced to the poverty, level of poverty in these areas. Malungkot. I've been involved in a program that was supposed to look and help into that. I left at a time when there was a change of government, and I was hoping to God that they would really succeed in what they were doing. In 1997, or 96, they brought the president of Sumitomo Corporation in Sulu. I personally was with him, and they were prepared to invest $20 million for a seaweed processing facility. It was a very bold move to have done that. Bakit dinala daw doon at gano'n, but the Japanese are very smart people also. They go to places where perhaps some people don't want to tread because of violence, because of the unsafe areas. But the Japanese are very big players in the development of Mindanao. I am a member of the Japanese Chamber of Commerce in Mindanao. I know that because I talk to them every time we have a board meeting and this thing comes up about their travels to Mindanao. They're not afraid of martial law. Actually, they welcome that. Compared to what we see here, the opposition to martial law, because they see that martial law is not the same martial law that we have experienced in the 70s. I grew up in the 70s. I saw what martial law was like. And this is not martial law, really. It's more of just increased protection. Okay? So makikita natin dito, ito yung mga incidents. So may mga attempted incidents. Makikita mo, this is Basilan, this is Sulu, this is Tawi-Tawi, this is Sibuto, si Tangkay, is Malaysia. And areas of Tarakan, you see, the ones in red are the ones that mga Pilipino ito. No? So, in November 11, 2016, about 6 Vietnamese crew were abducted when they were traversing the waters of Basilan and so forth. And the Dongbang giant boat on October 20, 2016, one Korean and one Filipino crew was abducted at gunpoint. Then you have also the crew in captivity is about 11 on the Philippine side. Kita natin dito, fishing trawler was not even spared. About 3 Filipino crew were abducted. So this came from the ISC piracy and armed robbery against ships in Asia. It's a report that comes out every month. I monitor these things because this is basically an indicator of how piracy continues to be a thriving industry in this part of the world. again, I trace this back to poverty. Why can't the problem in Sulu be solved right away? Because a number of these communities feed off on the runs of money that's being paid. Immediately they benefit right away. And you as a member of the community, then why shouldn't you support this? But that is really what's happening. I've talked to a number of my counterparts in the NGO world, and they have confirmed this. Next. So, the major concerns in a nutshell, no? The BIP Yaga vision of 2025 is based on an earlier BIP Yaga strategy that documents, and it was crafted to effectively focus on the critical constraints. So basically, ito yung mga in-identify na mga stakeholders. With private sector and LGU participation, with coordination between provincial and state governments in the IAGA, slow project implementation, lack of coherence and clarity in terms of the broad IAGA development goals and sector initiatives, need for regular multi-sectoral convergence and strong participative action, no? And the need for value-adding sub-regional projects guided by clear sector strategies. So we talk about the priority projects. These are basically infrastructure driven. These projects were chosen on the following criteria: consistent and complementing local and national development plans. There has got to be the sub-regional linkages involving at least 2 countries. National projects that have sub-regional implications or that can benefit from sub-regional synergies, then have positive social, economic, and environmental impacts. At the same time, catalyzing private sector investment, especially SMEs, and requires proactive LGUs. Kaya kanina yung pinapoint out yung local government forum as an important mechanism. Sayang na mechanism yan because that has been done in the past, but very few have attended, and most of the people that are supposed to be there are not there. That's why on this part, there's more work that's needed here. And most of all, these projects must be linked with ASEAN. So infrastructure projects, all in all, we're looking at 4.7 billion for Mindanao. The largest of that is really roads, railways, and bridges. Airports is about 1.5 billion. Then 175 million for seaports improvements. No? Power and energy infrastructure at about 901. Your trade facilitation through your economic corridors is about $252 billion. So ito yung mga areas that will benefit from this. For road improvement and institutional development projects, Cagayan de Oro, Butuan, Dipolog, and North Cotabato. Davao General Santos road improvement. You have the Mindanao railway system. Then you have the Pangil Bay Bridge and the Sulu Circumferential Road and Tawi-Tawi Road Network Development. Then for airports, you have Puerto Princesa Passenger Terminal, which was recently completed and inaugurated. Then you have General Santos Airport, using the Aerotropolis model, the Davao International Airport Improvement, Laguindingan Airport Development, and the new Zamboanga International Airport, and the Sanga-Sanga Airport. All of these are critical for us to pursue ecotourism-led strategy to attract investment and create more green jobs in the process. Then for seaports, ito naman yan. There are 9 seaports that will benefit from this. These are the ports of Zamboanga, Sitangkay, General Santos, Brooks Point in Palawan, Polyok, Cotabato, Davao Sasa Port Modernization, Puerto Princesa Integrated Fish Port, and Pasilan Seaport. On the other hand, you have power and energy, which is very important. The Visayas Mindanao Interconnection Project was a project of about 900 million, while the cost of the Mindanao transmission backbone upgrading has yet to be determined. So for your economic corridors, there were 2 corridors that were looked at. That's the West Borneo Economic Corridor, that's in Malaysia, and Brunei. Then you have the Greater Sulu-Sulawesi Corridor, GSSC. So for the GSSC, it's a maritime corridor mainly determined by the geography of your Sulawesi Seas and covering North Sulawesi in Indonesia, Sabah in Malaysia. And for Mindanao, it's for the Philippines, it's Mindanao and Palawan. So, but really, I look at these projects, pag hindi natin na-solve an issue ng poverty which has contributed to your piracy situation, I don't want to stand up here again and talk about the same thing in the next 10 years. Because this thing has been happening, and we cannot, as a country, to let this continue to happen. No? So the roles of stakeholders is very important. So for government, it is the consistent government intervention. The shortage of proper physical infrastructure continues to be a major challenge. In addition, connectivity issues in terms of transport, power, and ICT remain to be a strategic concern. Government interventions through policy and regulatory environment for public-private partnerships in sub-regional priority projects must be pursued. Then governments can also help out in addressing such issues in transport facilitation, cross-border trade facilitation, elimination of non-tariff barriers and measures, and streamlining of your CIQs, regulations and procedures. Next, the private sector. This part is very important. The role of the private sector is one that drives investment, private capital to come in. They are the ones that create the jobs that are needed to spur development and to sustain the growth of this economic operation between European countries. No? A lot of this are really your micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, and that's a huge bulk of your economic structure in Iaga. So the same problems exist, except maybe in Brunei and Malaysia for SME development. But Philippines and Indonesia are basically the same. And really, while we are making strides, it's not enough. The pace is not fast enough to really make an impact. Ngayon lang nila ginagamit sa provinces yung value chain analysis. I don't know, are you familiar with value chain analysis for commodities? That's looking at the entire structure from the time that you produce a particular product to the time that you sell it. There are a subset of activities here which can be money makers. We've always advocated the value chain approach because that helps increase the profitability for farmer groups. No? Then the private sector can initiate PPP that can provide the needed funding mechanisms to implement the priority projects. And then I'm hoping that they will revisit this because namatay ito noong 1997. We were about to launch the Mindanao Development Fund, which is supposed to support your SMEs. Bakit kailangan may fund na ganun? Because these SMEs, at least yung mga smaller businesses, rely too much on yung mga 5-6. That drives now the cost of business. Because they cannot qualify for a loan in a bank. Kulang ng documentation. Ang daming impediment to SME development. And using the same, it's sad to see that the level of manufacturing activities for SMEs is not high. The Philippines has always been on the lower end. Countries like Singapore, countries like Malaysia, their private sector invests no less than 10 to 15% of their gross revenues in research and development. And they're now seeing that this kind of benefits, this benefits their situation there because people now are able to earn more money because of new technologies being used. Dito, it's business as usual pa rin. So the ones, there was a survey done, I think Philippines is only ranks only 2% to 3% lang ang dinidevote natin for R&D, research and development. And that's critical for the development of the SME sector. I've been looking at the programs of the OST, but there are also other government agencies that I'm very pleased to see that they have really made significant strides. And one of them is the Department of Agriculture, Bureau of Agricultural Research. These guys really should be looked at. They're in cutting-edge industries that I've not seen. And I was talking to the director, and they always have put it a competitive spirit of being 10 steps ahead of competition. That's in preparation now of the ASEAN integration. Next. So the role of civil society organization basically involves a check and balance. I mentioned this here, especially in the case of resource extraction, mining, logging, perhaps even to a certain extent plantation agriculture, because these kind of activities have excluded really your marginal sectors from development. You'd be surprised that even with mining, which is supposed to generate so much in terms of revenues, maganda nga yung revenue flow, pero kung titignan naman natin yung cost of mining in the country, in the long term, rocks don't grow. The moment you excavate, not only you affect the entire biodiversity, it creates a lot of uncertainty on the futures of those communities that have been hosting a lot of this mining. And malungkot, because I've seen some of these communities that used to be green. Now it's, whenever, there was one time that I was driving in Compostela Valley and all the way to Surigao del Norte. Malakas ang ulan nun. Then I was looking outside of the vehicle. I could see, for a single minute, I thought that there was somebody who got killed because the earth was so red. Parang I could see, because of what mining has done, parang it's bleeding the ground dry. You know, it really was a difficult situation that I looked at. I mean, this is really the positive development. So, the role of CSOs here are very important. Check and balance yan. I can understand the sentiments of anti-mining. Huwag tayo mag-mining at gano'n. But, there is something that's important there. You must be prepared to deal with the communities if you take out mining. Anong gagawin ng mga tao ngayon? You cannot just say, oh, we'll stop mining and then let's just hope for green jobs to happen. It doesn't happen like that. Perhaps a more defined exit strategy would be to engage the communities and see where they can make a living, not necessarily based on mining. So, you know, there should be also policy, the policy leaders should extensively consult with the CSOs in order to ensure total support and total stakeholder buy-in. Because if you don't have that, then there goes your project, no matter how good your IRR, no matter how good your net present value will come out of it, wala yan. Because it's not supported by the community. That, there are areas in Mindanao that have so much in terms of resources, but at the same time, malaki rin ang cost for development. Next. For opportunities and challenges, the success factors are looked at in terms of trade, reduction of your trade cost. No? So, examples of trade facilitation interventions are better border and customs management, improved infra, open and competitive markets in logistic and service sectors, harmonized regional standards for products. So, at the same time, you have increased competitiveness of firms, improved export performance, creation of revenues and jobs, and economic growth. And all of this put together will be your blueprint in reducing poverty. Poverty reduction. Let's not look at poverty programs as a way of growing poverty as a business. but looking at this kind of programs of reducing the poverty, especially in the more sensitive areas of Western Mindanao. So the winners under this scenario are your exporters of competitive commodities. Your losers are producers of commodities that are being imported or has a high operating cost. So kung import-based ka, you're prone to not really win out of this because you lose out the advantage in unang-una na lang sa foreign exchange rate mo. You may buy, let's say, you think at a low price, you go to the bank and borrow money, then the next day, you'll see that there's been a slight devaluation of the currency, you'll have to pay more. So all of this will affect. No? So yung mga winners will say, it may be difficult, but it is possible. Then they see the gain, they see the possibilities, and they make it happen. The losers say, it may be possible, but it is too difficult. Kabaliktaran ito. They see the pain instead of the gain. They see the problems instead of the possibilities. And they let it happen. These guys make it happen. There's a distinct difference between the two. So the general solution here is the reorganization of your MSEs, SM, SE, which will call for innovation and reduction of costs, innovation to improve quality and increase competitiveness, and think regionally, but still maintain that local perspective. So, we were talking about the kind of opportunities that come in. You can see that domestic arrivals to IAGA countries have been showing an increasing trend. The international is somewhat flat. Can anybody tell me why? Because a lot of these are also driven by the negative news that piracy incidents has generated. And also the presence also of armed groups, especially in Mindanao, and believe it or not, even in certain areas of Malaysia and Indonesia. So that's why the three countries must really work together to really reduce this. Na pag oras na nagkakaroon ng habulan ng mga pirate ships, because they think that they'll be safe in the Philippines, I think the agreement there was that to let the Indonesians go all the way to Philippine territory, we just get those guys that just committed this piracy thing. I think the President made a policy pronouncement to that effect some months ago. And that there's been a high-level discussion on this. So I'm just hoping to God that something really happens to this. No? Next. Trading goods in IAGA is a challenge. Why? Now notice mo yung trend. It's going down. And we trace the reason why. It's the influx of goods coming from China. So yung trade na that was supposed to happen between these countries and all got diverted to a major trading partner like China. China, as you know, is the manufacturer of the world. Everything that we wear, from the clothes that we wear, to the cars that we drive, to the houses we live in, you would see always parts of it are made in China. But that's the reality of things. No? Okay. So, ito yung mga obstacles on the corridor value chain. This came out in an open question survey of corridor surveys by province or state. This was based on a document of the Big IAGA Economic Corridor Study in 2017. This was funded by ADB. So anong sinasabi ng mga people from the Philippines? The Philippines is the one in Blue Hill. So, makikita mo pagdating sa Mindanao, ang pinakamataas na concern is the inadequate market and cross-border information. Then, it's funny, you know, this matter, I've always talked about this in 1994. Kailangan at that time, meron tayong parang trade directory that will put together the traders from the different areas, no? Once na dumaan ka niyan, may process of screening yan, okay ang track record dito, para hindi naman tayo masira as a region. When you have people of dubious character wanting to trade, and then magkakaroon tayo ng instances of 1, 2, 3.
I remember in the earlier part of IATA, when these things were being developed, there were groups that were coming in, promising millions. And we just have to stay clear of this kind of people because they have different intentions there. In investment, packaging, never be, what I learned is that you never should get attracted to the larger amounts. More often than that, it's a scam. Hindi totoo yan. Because the real investors will never talk about they're going to bring in 5 billion pesos. Recently, I was invited to attend a forum in Davao. They were talking to a Malaysian investor. But the guy says, I can bring you easily 3 billion, but you have to provide guarantees. I said, if it's investment, you don't need guarantees. Then sabi niya, but you know, the government has got to guarantee. Why do you need government guarantees? Government guarantees never happen in direct investment of the private sector in any country. Kaya when people talk to you about that, learn and start to think, you don't need this kind of things. Guarantees are, in a way, an addition to your public debt. That sa accounting pa yan, for those that have a financial or accounting background, it is a contingent liability. So, then restricted rules and regulations and policies, it is much more pronounced in Sarawak. In Sabah naman, the problem has been the high transport and logistic cost. So, not much in West Kalimantan, which is in Indonesia, no? And then in North Sulawesi, in Indonesia also, main concern is really the high cost of production. Why? Because of the high cost of labor. I do remember a long time ago when we were setting up IAGA, there was a lot of cross-border investments that were happening, but more on the Philippine side. They invested in fish processing facilities in Manalo and Bitong, Port of Bitong in North Sulawesi. And looking back, I found out that a number of these are now Indonesian owned. But they retain the workers who are Filipinos. And I asked why. Because the level of productivity of Filipinos were a lot higher. And the work ethics are better than the ones that you see in East Indonesia. Because noon, people, once they get paid, they don't come back to work after 3 days. On the 4th day, pag wala ng pera, they show up for work. So you as a producer and all, you are forced to really get labor outside. That was the story of San Miguel Corporation, the story of Pure Foods, the story of even itong company nila Concepcion. They all invested in these facilities there. And why was that important? Because at the time when General Santos had about 11 fish canneries, we never had the fish. We never had the fish to feed into those canneries. All those fish came from Indonesia. Why? Because of higher incidence of overfishing. We became victims of our own success. So that's why they set up these joint ventures to make it legal. So what they do, under the joint venture agreement, is to produce and process fish and export it from Indonesia to the outside. But I think 60 or 70% of that is sent back to General Santos. Para lang malasabihin na meron compliance in fair trade, but I don't know if that still is being continued. But I believe the Indonesian government may have, in a way, discontinued the practice. So, yung opportunities in Mindanao through the big IAGA, in a nutshell, can be seen as agribusiness. Pag sinabi natin agribusiness, ano ito? How different is it from agriculture? Agriculture has to do with the production, but not the marketing. Yung agribusiness is combined, kaya nga agribusiness. Yung certain entity na yan produces it and then sells it. So, kompleto yung value chain niya, yung supply chain niya. It's very complete. Now, for infrastructure, it is the opportunities here are in your PPP. No?
But these are require large ticket items. These require large capital outlays. And the cross-border trade. But you need an electronic trading platform to make it safer for traders to do business with one another. So pick up of commodities, at least yung payment issues, ma-address na yan. Then the matter of ecotourism. As your generator for green jobs in not only the Mindanao and Palawan, but also for the rest of Yaga. So with that, I'd like to thank you. You've been a very patient crowd. As they say in Mindanao, mayong hapon, naghang salamat. Good afternoon and thank you.